Biology 5090, May-June 2023, paper 1-2. All right, let's move on with the discussion. Question number 1, how permeable are the cell wall and the cell membrane in a plant cell? If I draw the cell like this, you know the cell wall is the outermost covering in a plant cell. Inside the cell wall, you know that there is a cell membrane, right? And you know that this cell wall, the cell wall will allow any substance to go in and to come out, right? It basically allows anything to go in and go out. But if you take a cell membrane, unlike a cell wall, doesn't allow everything to go in and doesn't allow everything to go out. It only allows some substances to go in and some substances to go out, right? It basically regulates what should go into the cell and what should go out of the cell. Therefore, the cell membrane is known to be selectively permeable, right? The cell membrane is known to be selectively permeable. In other words, we can call this as partially permeable, right? Partially permeable. So cell wall is fully permeable while the cell membrane is partially permeable. Answer for question number 1 will be answer number B. Right. 2. The diagram shows an arthropod. We know when we look at this diagram that this is a fly. Right. Let's go through the answers. Using the key, what correctly identifies the arthropod in the picture? First one has wings. Go to 2. We know the fly has wings. We can see that in the picture. Therefore, let's move on to number 2. Right. Has 2 body parts. Right. Now, because we have moved to part 2, we can cut off answer A and we can move on to part 2. Right. They have said it has 2 body parts. You can see that this fly has a head region and it has a thorax, right? And it has a tail region as well. Therefore, it has 3 body parts, not 2 body parts. Therefore, we can eliminate the answer number B as well. Then let's go for this one, has 3 body parts. Yes, we know that this fly, we can see that it has 3 body parts. So they're asking us to go to 3, and we are moving on to 3. Okay, they say it has 6 legs. Count and see how many legs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, we can see that this insect or that this arthropod has 6 legs, right? Therefore, we can select the answer as C. And finally, they have said it has 8 legs. No, this fly does not have 8 legs. It has 6 legs. And the answer is confirmed. Answer is C. Third one, which statements about diffusion are correct? Okay, so what is diffusion? Did you know when there are substances in high concentration in a place, those substances can move from a high concentration to a lower concentration and you call this as diffusion. For example, now think of a spoiled egg in your kitchen. Someone accidentally breaks it, and this egg actually will emit a bad gas, and this gas is known as hydrogen sulfide, right? This egg will emit a bad gas, which is known as hydrogen sulfide, right? Now this takes place in the kitchen. Okay, but you are in your room, but still you can smell it. Why? Because the gas particles, the hydrogen sulfide gas particles have moved from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. By diffusion, the gas particles have moved to your room by diffusion, right? So you can see molecules move from a higher concentration to a lower concentration, and when it moves like this, it doesn't use any energy as well, so we can call this as a passive process since it doesn't use any energy, and therefore we call this as diffusion. Right, let's see what the answers are. Which statements about diffusion are correct? Molecules move from a higher to a lower concentration. Yes, we can see A and B are correct. C and D we can cut off. It only occurs within living system. The example that I gave you right now, you can see it is happening in a non-living system. In a non-living system, not in a living system, right? In our living system also, if you take a cell, right, substances can move. If you have more glucose outside the cell and less glucose inside the cell, glucose can move from a higher concentration to a lower concentration. Now that occurs in a living system, right? That occurs in a living cell, in a living system. But the example that I took before, the egg example, right? The example of the egg, right? In that case, it doesn't happen in a living system. Therefore, only occurs within living system will be false, right? It will be false, right? Rate slows down as the temperature increases. In now, the movement of molecules, that means the movement basically depends on the temperature. You know, when the temperature is high, when a temperature of a system is really high, you know the molecules have high kinetic energy. High kinetic energy. High kinetic energy means molecule starts to move fast. Molecules tends to move fast. That's why we say it has high kinetic energy. When the molecule starts to move fast, diffusion takes place at a greater rate, at a faster rate. Rate increases. Rate doesn't slow down when temperature increases. Rate increases when temperature increases. Therefore, they have put a false mark. Therefore, you can see answer will be B. For the third question, answer will be B. Right? For the third question, answer will be B. Fourth one, some ways in which molecules may move into and out of cells are listed. First one, molecules move from a higher concentration to a lower concentration. We just learned what we call that, right? Molecules move from a highly concentrated area to a lowly concentrated area. You call it as diffusion, right? What is the opposite of diffusion? Opposite of diffusion is active transport, because in active transport, substances move from a low concentrated area to a high concentrated area, right? And to do this, it uses energy as well. That is why we call it as active. When a process is meant to be active, that means that process uses energy, right? If we call something active, that means the process uses energy. So to move from a low concentrated area to a high concentrated area, it uses energy, and that's why you call it active transport, right? Active transport. You can see clearly that it's the opposite of diffusion. And they have said in the second one, molecules move from a lower concentration to a higher concentration. You call it active transport. Third one, molecules move from a higher concentration to a lower concentration across a partially permeable membrane. Before, we just said when molecules move from a high concentrated area to a low concentrated area, we just referred to it as diffusion. But there is a special type of diffusion called as osmosis, right? Osmosis is the diffusion of water molecules. Diffusion of water molecules from a region of high concentration again to a region of low concentration, right? Down a concentration gradient across a partially permeable membrane. This statement is really important. Across a partially permeable membrane. Osmosis happens only through a partially permeable membrane. And here in the third one, they have said partially permeable membrane and higher concentration to a lower concentration. That means it is osmosis, right? Osmosis. Right. So which statement is correct? Let's go with A. For one describes osmosis. Okay. No, we know one describes diffusion, not osmosis. So eliminate A. Go for B. Two describes osmosis. No, two describes active transport. right? Therefore, it's wrong. C, one describes active transport, no one describes diffusion. D, two describes active transport, yes, two describes active transport. And three describes osmosis. Yes, three describes osmosis. Answer is D. Moving on to the fifth question. Food tests were carried out on a solution containing biological molecules. The table shows the results of the test, name of test, Burette test, and the result of the test, purple solution, and Benedict test, blue solution. All right. So first of all, we need to know what we use this test for. We know we use the Burette test. We use the Burette test to test for proteins, to test if there are any proteins present in that sample, right? What if proteins are present? Then what happens to the color of the Burette solution? We know in the Burette solution, the initial color was blue, right? The initial color was blue, and what happens if proteins are present? The color changes onto purple or violet, right? Purple or violet. So here they have said result of the test is a purple solution. That means this solution actually, the food that was tested actually contained proteins, right? Contained proteins. Then going on for the Benedict solution, you can see result of the test is blue solution. What do you use the Benedict test for? You use the Benedict test to check if there are any reducing sugars present. Usually, you commonly refer to it as glucose, right? You commonly refer it to as glucose. If glucose is present, you know the result of the test will be red, right? Initially, Benedict solution is blue in color. If glucose is present, the blue solution turns into red. Right, so here they have said the result of the test is blue solution. That means no glucose present. Let's go with the answers. A, the solution contains protein but no glucose. Yes, the solution A, you can see it contains proteins but no glucose. Therefore, A is the correct one. Then let's move on to the sixth question. The graph shows the concentration of maltose produced when amylase digests starch at different pH values. Right. What explains the shape of the graph between point X and point Y? You know, as pH has been increased, you can see the maltose concentration has increased and it suddenly has decreased after reaching a certain peak, right? And you can see maltose concentration is basically maltose concentration. Now they're saying the concentration of maltose produced, right? That means maltose concentration means the product, right? The concentration of the product. So when a reaction takes place, only the product is formed, right? So that means here what they're referring to as the maltose concentration is basically the rate of the reaction. Right here, what they're basically referring to is the rate of the reaction. When the rate of the reaction is high, the maltose concentration produced is high. When the rate of the reaction is low, maltose concentration is low. So here they're indirectly comparing the rate of direction with the pH, and you can see that, right? So let's see what happens over here. You can see as pH was increased initially, the maltose concentration increased. That means the rate of concentration increased, right? But when it reached the point X, right? When it reached the point X, it reaches the maximum value. And after that, you can see after that pH change, after that particular pH, it starts to drop. The maltose concentration starts to drop. You call this pH value as the optimum pH, right? You call this pH value as the optimum pH, and you can see the maltose concentration going down. What happens over here is for all the cellular activities, for all the chemical activities, pH affects the structure of the enzymes. You know, we have to maintain a stable pH range. That means a constant pH range in our body, right? In our body, for example, our blood has a pH of 7.4. If the pH changes, then it would be detrimental for us, right? Likewise, we need to maintain our pH because too much acidity and too much basicity can affect a lot of reactions, right? So you can see When pH was increased beyond this X value, you can see the maltose concentration decreases. That's because at a certain pH range, at a certain pH, the enzyme molecule, that means the amylase, right? Amylase over here changes its shape. The enzyme molecule changes its shape because of the effect from the high pH. It would change its shape, right? When pH is increased, when it's increased above a certain value, that increase would affect the shape of the enzyme. And you can see when the enzyme shape initially, let's say the enzyme looked like this, and this is the substrate, this is the substrate, this is the enzyme, right? After the pH has affected, after that high pH has affected the enzyme would look something like this, right? Can this substrate any longer fit this enzyme? No, the substrate can't fit this enzyme, right? That means you can see the enzyme's active site. This is what you call as the active site. The area where the substrate joins the enzyme is what you call as the active site. You can see the active site has actually changed, and therefore the substrate can no longer fit using the lock and key hypothesis or lock and key mechanism, right? Lock and key mechanism, it cannot join thereafter. Therefore, the rate of the reaction would decrease and the product formation would also decrease, right? So what happens over here, after a certain pH range, the enzyme's shape's gonna change. You call it denaturation, or the enzyme's denature, right? That happens with temperature as well. When you increase the temperature above a certain value, that would happen for the same thing would happen for the enzymes again. Likewise with pH also, denaturation take place, right? Let's go through the answers and see. The enzyme is completely denatured and does not work at all. They're basically asking us about point X and Y. At point X and point Y, the enzyme is not completely denatured, because you can see some products are being formed in X, a lot of products are being formed in Y, at least some maltose is being produced, right? So you can't say that the enzyme has completely denatured. Enzyme is functioning. Or somewhere here you can say, okay, over somewhere here you can say, okay, that the enzyme has denatured, but at X and Y you can't say that the enzyme has denatured. Therefore, I will eliminate A. Let's go for B. The enzyme molecules have less kinetic energy. pH doesn't really affect the kinetic energy. It's usually the temperature which affects the kinetic energy. Therefore, B also considered to be wrong. C. The shape of the enzyme active site is changing and does not fit the substrate as well. Yeah, as you increase this pH above the optimum pH, you can see the active site, the shape of the active site changes because the enzyme shape changes, right? Hence, the substrate will not be able to fit well. Now, that is a correct statement, but let's move on for D as well. The substrate molecules have more kinetic energy. As I've told you, it's temperature which deals with kinetic energy, not the pH. Therefore, D also wrong. Answer will be C. All right. Seventh question. The diagram shows a section through part of a leaf from a dicotyledonous plant. Which cells carry out photosynthesis? Right, first let's label these cells. What is this first layer? We know this is the epidermal cell layer, or you can call it the upper epidermis, right? Upper epidermis. And you can see this layer number 2. It is the palisade mesophyll layer. Palisade mesophyll layer, that elongated cells are palisade mesophyll cells. And you can see the third layer, it's the spongy mesophyll layer. Spongy mesophyll, right? You can see a lot of air spaces between them. That's one characteristic in spongy mesophyll layer. And you can see another layer of cells underneath, which is the lower epidermal layer. Lower epidermal layer, and you can see a special type of openings like this. Those openings are referred to as stomata, right? Those openings are referred to as stomata. Which cells carry out photosynthesis? In the upper epidermis, it's just like that cell layer does not have any chloroplast. It allows light to directly fall onto the palisade layer, right? It doesn't have any chloroplast. But if you take cell number 2, you can visibly see the black dots, right? The black markings like this, and they are the ones which they have referred to as the chloroplast. In 2, you can see chloroplasts are present. Chloroplast is the site where photosynthesis takes place, right? Therefore, 2, you can see in the palisade mesophyll, chloroplasts are present. In the spongy mesophyll layer also, you can see chloroplasts are present. But in the lower epidermis, you can't see. But look at this. You might say in the lower epidermis that you can see. But actually, between the lower epidermal cell, there is a special type of cell called the guard cell, right? There is a special type of cell called the guard cell, and these guard cells have chloroplast. These guard cells are the ones which create the stomata, right? These guards are the ones which create the stomata, right? Actually, due to the movement of guard cells only, the stomata can open and the stomata can close, right? Therefore, guard cells will also have chloroplast and it will also carry out photosynthesis. So 4 also correct. So answer will be 2, 3, 4, which is C. Right. 8th question. Which row shows why plants need magnesium ions and nitrate ions? All right, now this is based on plant nutrition actually. And let's see why magnesium ions are important. Right, you know magnesium, right? Magnesium, what is it used to do? It is used to make chlorophyll, right? Where do we get the magnesium ions from? Not we. Where do the plants get the magnesium ions from? The plants get the magnesium ions from the soil, right? The root hair cells absorb the magnesium ions using active transport, and that's how they get the magnesium ions, right? Okay, so without magnesium, the plant will actually have yellow in between veins, right? The plant will have yellow in between veins, plus it will also, without magnesium, mainly you can see yellow in between veins. And when it comes to nitrate ions are important to make amino acids, right? To make amino acids, right? And we know that actually this nitrate ions, nitrate ions are not directly absorbed. That means this, that means nitrate ions are directly absorbed from the root, right? Through the soil. And then from there only you have that nitrogen present. In nitrate ions, nitrogen is present, right? In nitrate ions, nitrogen is present. That nitrogen is the one which is used to make the amino acids, right? So you can see nitrate ions are used to make amino acids and magnesium ions are used to make chlorophyll. Plus, without nitrate ions, you will have yellowed leaves, as well as you will have stunted growth. That means you'll have poor growth, right? Therefore, answer will be D. 9. Root hairs take in water and ions from the soil. Which table shows the correct concentrations of water and ions in the root hair? Before that, I will explain you how this happens, right? So when a root takes in water from the soil has more water, right? The soil has more water. Inside these root hair cells, there is less water, right? So water can easily move from the soil into the root hairs. And what is the method we use over here? We use diffusion, right? We use osmosis, which is a special type of diffusion, right? We use osmosis, which is a special type of diffusion. Why? Because you can see water flows from a region of high concentration to a region of less concentration. Therefore, that is why you call it as osmosis, which is a special type of diffusion. Right. Now look at this, right? When it comes to the ions like nitrate ions, magnesium ions, any nutrients which is present in the soil, usually the soil has low nutrients, right? They don't have much nutrients. They only have nutrients in a very low concentration, right? But when you look at the plants, they have a lot of high levels of nutrition, right? They have lots of high levels of ions, right? Nutrient ions like magnesium, chlorophyll. But anyways, they still want to take nutrients from the soil as well, right? Otherwise, this level would go down, right? Eventually, inside the root hair cells, even though there is a high level, eventually when you use it for different processes in the plant's body, that level would go down. So therefore, continuously, you need to take in the nutrients into the root hairs. But look at that. They have low nutrient level in the soil and high level nutrient. How do they move into the root hairs? We know it is by active transport, right? When something moves from a low concentration to a high concentration, we call it active transport, right? So you got the idea. Let's go through the answers. Answer A, you can see water concentration in root hair is lower than soil. Concentration in root hair is lower than soil. Yes, if you take the concentration in root hair in water, the concentration in the root hair is less than the soil. But if you take the ions, it's higher than the soil, right? It's higher than the soil. Therefore, A is correct. A is correct. B, then you can understand B, C, D, all are wrong. Because if you take the ions, you can say the root hairs, ions are in high concentration when compared to the soil, right? When compared to the soil. 10th one, a herbaceous plant growing in a nutrient solution is placed in a well-lit container. Humid air is passed through the container. The diagram shows a section through a part of the plant. So you can see they have shown you a root cell, right? A dichotomous, a dicotyledonous, right? A dicot, a transverse section of a dicot root, right? So let's see. Over here, what are the structures given as S and what are the structures given as R? Right, this star-shaped structure in a dicot root is what you called as the xylem, right? The xylem, right? Here I have made a bit of a mistake, don't refer to that, right? And you can see these what you call semicircular structures over here referred to as R, they are called as phloem, right? The star-shaped structure is the xylem. The R will be the phloem, right? Then let's go with the answers. What happens now? They're asking. Initially, they are saying that there was humid air. Then this humid air is replaced by dry air, right? The speeds of the movements of the fluid in tissues R and S are measured. The humid air is replaced by dry air, and the speeds of the movement of the fluids are measured again. All right, now you know what is inside the xylem? Xylem sap. What is inside the phloem? Phloem sap, right? Xylem transports what? Xylem transports water and minerals. What does phloem transport? Sucrose, amino acids, right? The nutrients, right? The nutrients, right? So let's see when there is, now if you take S, which is the xylem, right? Xylem carries water and this process is called as transpiration, right? Transpiration. Transpiration is affected by several factors like humidity, wind speed, temperature, right? All these things, the amount of light intensity, right? These things affect the transpiration. Now, right, when there is humid air outside, that means there are a lot of water particles, right? There are a lot of water particles like this outside the leaf surface, right? Now this is the leaf, this is the inside of the leaf, this is the stomata, this is the stomata, these are the guard cells, this is the stomata. You can see, right? You can see outside the leaf there's a lot of water particles, right? And inside the leaf also there are water particles, but when compared to outside it will be low. When there is high humid conditions outside, you can see when compared to the inside it's going to be high. The water particles out are going to be high. So can water molecules from inside move out? No. You know, water vapor moves in and out through the leaf by diffusion. Water vapor moves in and out of the leaf by diffusion. But you can see water can't easily move out of the leaf because there are a lot of water particles over here, right? A lot of water particles are present. So can water move in or water move out? No. Sorry, can the water vapor inside the leaf move out? No, the water vapor can't move out. Therefore, this transpiration process will be slowed down, right? When there is humidity, the transpiration process will be slowed down. Right. Now, what if this humid air was replaced by dry air? Dry air means no water vapor molecules. No water vapor molecules. Inside, there are water vapor molecules. You can see water vapor concentration inside is higher, and outside there is no water vapor. Therefore, outside concentration of water vapor is low. Therefore, you can see easily these water vapor molecules can move out by diffusion. Hence, transpiration rate increases. So when you replace the humid air by dry air with the dry air, you can see the transpiration rate increases. And transpiration happens in a tree. If you take it, happens in the upward movement, right? That means the water in the soil is basically transported into the leaves, right? That is what you call as transpiration. And from the leaves, it is being lost into the air, right? This is the whole process of transpiration. So you can see the process will be increased when there is dry air, plus also the process happens upward. So what is the only answer with that with that sort of reference? You can see greatly increased upward movement. And another important thing is the phloem transportation is not affected by these factors much, right? The phloem transportation, which we refer to as translocation, is not basically affected by much of the factors. So you can go with the little change one, right? Tissue R will have little change, while tissue S, that means the xylem, that will be greatly increased upward movement. Answer will be D. Some of the nutrients in sweet potatoes are listed. 11th question. Which nutrient will help to prevent each disease? Right. We know calcium, when calcium is there, right? Calcium helps us to have strong bones, strong teeth, right? Strong bones and strong teeth, right? And deficiency of calcium would lead to osteoporosis later in life. Plus, did you know when we don't have enough vitamin D in our body, right? We can't absorb this calcium in our blood, right? Our blood will have calcium, but our bones can't absorb it. That means, again, our bones will become weak, right? Again, our bones will become weak. So that means children with vitamin D deficiency, since they can't absorb calcium, they will have a condition called rickets, right? They will have a condition called rickets. So that means it's basically something like when you don't have calcium only, the rickets condition happens, but that also happens due to vitamin D deficiency, right? And without fiber, you will have constipation, right? And when you don't have enough iron, you know iron is a major component in the pigment hemoglobin, right? Iron is a major component in the pigment hemoglobin, and without iron, this hemoglobin cannot be produced. That means the production of the red blood cells will also decrease, right? Will also decrease. Therefore, that person, right? Therefore, that person will not have enough blood, will not have enough blood. That means this condition is what you refer to as anemia. And if you take vitamin C, right? A person without vitamin C, that means a person who's not taking any citrus fruits in citrus foods into their body, right? This sort of person will actually, right, will actually get a condition called scurvy, right? Where the teeth will bleed, where the gums will bleed, right? So these will be some conditions when you have scurvy. Plus, vitamin C is a good vitamin which helps in the production of collagen, which maintains elasticity in our skin, right? So without vitamin C, our skin would also age. That is another deficiency, but scurvy is like the main deficiency. So you can see calcium. Without calcium, you get rickets. Answer number one. It's not without calcium, it's basically without vitamin D only you get rickets, but without vitamin D, you can't absorb the calcium, therefore you get rickets, okay? Right, and without iron, you get anemia, therefore answer three. And without vitamin C, you get scurvy, therefore answer will be A. Right. 12th question. 4 of the organs of the alimentary canal are listed. Which sequence shows the order in which food passes through these organs? Right. So the organs are colon, duodenum, esophagus, and the stomach. Right. We know when we eat, right, our food passes through our mouth, which we refer to as the oral cavity. Then it moves into the pharynx, then it moves into the esophagus, then into our stomach, right? And from our stomach into our small intestine, right? Into our small intestine. Our small intestine has three parts. The first part is duodenum, right? In duodenum only mainly the digestion takes place, right? And the other two parts are jejunum and ileum. They are the main sites for the absorption of these digested nutrients, right? Digestion means breaking down of large molecules into smaller molecules, and jejunum and ileum absorb those smaller molecules. And finally, we get the large intestine. Right, so basically this question is an easy question, so they're only asking for us the order, right? So you can see colon will become the last, right? Colon should come as the last option because it's part of the large intestine, and esophagus should come as the first option, then stomach, then the duodenum, right? So it's L, M, K, and J. Answer is C. Right. 13th, a person who has celiac disease has flattened villi in the ileum. If a person with celiac disease eats the same quantity and types of food as a disease-free person, they will have low levels of glucose in their hepatic portal vein. Which row explains this? Right, so they're basically saying when this villi, right, the person with the celiac disease, right, they will have a lower glucose in their hepatic portal vein. So they're asking why. That's because, in our small intestine, or basically in our ileum, where that means a part of the small intestine where digestion take place, there are villi, right? There are villi. These are actually finger-like projections, right? Finger-like projections into the lumen of the small intestine. Finger-like projections, right? These projections increase the surface area for the nutrient absorption. So nutrient absorption will take place at a faster rate, right? It will take place at a faster rate. But what will happen when the villi is folded or when the villi is flattened? That means the villi will be flattened like this. That means the nutrient can't be absorbed effectively. Why? Because the surface area is reduced. The surface area is reduced. That means the nutrients are not absorbed effectively, right? That means all the nutrients will just pass through the ileum without being absorbed because they can't be absorbed. The villi doesn't have a large surface area, right? So you can see so therefore you can see the glucose level or the nutrients level present in the hepatic portal vein, right? Present in the hepatic portal vein, which basically carries the nutrients. Hepatic portal vein is the vein which carries, or the vein or the blood vessel which carries nutrients from the small intestine into the liver, right? From the small intestine into the liver. So you can see over here the reason why they're not absorbed is because they have a lower surface area. The villi has a lower surface area in a celiac patient. So here they say capillaries do not absorb glucose molecules. Actually, it's not any problem with the capillaries. Capillaries are okay over here. They can absorb the glucose molecules, but the issue is with the villi, right? The surface area of the villi has been reduced, or the ileum has been reduced. Hence, not much of the glucose are being absorbed, right? Therefore, the capillaries do not have any involvement with this part. Capillaries are functioning properly inside the villi. The capillaries are there, they're functioning properly, but they are not allowed to function properly because of the reduction in the surface area, right? Therefore, surface area of the ileum is reduced. That is true. Answer is C. Which process does not result in an overall loss of energy from the organism? We get energy from plants by a process called photosynthesis. We get the initial energy from plants by a process called photosynthesis, because the plants are the ones which makes the food, and we refer to them as producers. And from producers, you know that there is a food chain like this, right? And always when energy is passing from one trophic level to another trophic level, you can see energy is being dissipated, right? Energy is being released out, right? And this is being released out because of respiration, because of metabolic activities, right? Because of different processes, this energy is being released, right? But actually, you can see photosynthesis, it helps to actually fix their energy into the plants. So you can see it is the process which does not result in overall loss of energy. Answer is A, because you can see in B, respiration in animals, energy is lost. And when you try to control the temperature, it's another biological process. Therefore, it will also helps us to lose some energy. Not helps actually. From that, we will lose energy, which is bad. And germination of seeds, it uses up energy for the growth of the new plant. Therefore, B, C, D all have an overall loss of energy. 15th one, when yeast cells respire anaerobically, which substance is used and which substances are produced? Right. So when yeast cells reproduced anaerobically means without oxygen, right? Anaerobically means without oxygen. So when yeast cells respire anaerobically, the products that are formed will be ethanol and carbon dioxide, right? That is why we used ethanol in producing bread, in producing wines, right? Because when we produce bread, right, the bread will have large holes like this on it, and that's because carbon dioxide molecules have been produced and they have escaped, right? And yeast is also being used to produce ethanol as well, right? So actually the yeast cells feed on sugars to do this, right? Their substrate is the sugar, and they actually turn this sugar into ethanol and carbon dioxide. So ethanol is a type of alcohol, right? It is a type of alcohol. Therefore, you can see substances produced are alcohol and carbon dioxide, and substances used will be sugar. Right. Which word equation represents aerobic respiration? 16th question. In aerobic respiration, ethanol is not produced, but carbon dioxide will still be produced, because aerobic respiration takes place in humans, in any animals, right? In any living organisms, not in any, but in most of the living organisms, aerobic respiration takes place. And we use glucose plus oxygen, right? We use glucose and oxygen. We take in oxygen, we breathe in oxygen for respiration. So we combine glucose and oxygen and we create carbon dioxide and water. Not just that, with that, energy is also released, right? Energy is also released, and that is why respiration is important. We get all the energy from the aerobic respiration. So final products will be carbon dioxide plus water, and initial substrates will be glucose plus oxygen. Answer is C. Which chamber of the heart has the thickest muscular walls? If you take the heart like this, this is the right atria, that this is the right ventricle, that this is the left atria, and this is the left ventricle, right? This left ventricle has to pump blood throughout the body, right? And this vessel is called as aorta. This left ventricle has to pump blood throughout the body. But if you take the right ventricle, it just needs to pump blood out into the lungs. And if you take the right atrium pumps blood into this right ventricle, and left atrium pumps blood into the left ventricle, right? So when compared to the left ventricle, all the other distances are small, right? All the other distances are small, but look at the distance that blood needs to travel when the left ventricle contracts. It needs to travel around the whole body, right? Around the whole body, right? That means left ventricle should have the thickest walls. Why? When you have thick walls, what happens? The pressure of the blood inside that compartment increases. Pressure in that compartment increases. Therefore, blood can move with high pressure. High pressure means high, actually, it can move into what you call the tiniest ends as well, right? The tiniest ends as well. Therefore, left ventricle is the one which has the thickest muscular walls. Answer is B. 18th, the diagram shows the human circulatory system. At which point is the pressure of the blood circulating through the blood vessels is the highest, right? So here you can see, here is the left ventricle. Pumping out from the left ventricle, the blood will have the highest pressure, right? This is the aorta, which they have labeled as A. Therefore, A will have the highest pressure. And if you take C, the C is the pulmonary artery. It doesn't have much pressure. Pulmonary artery, right? It doesn't have much pressure because here they're just pumping the blood into the lungs. But here you can see they're pumping the blood into the whole of the body. And over B also, in the lungs also, not much of the pressure because already blood has reached the required organs, right? Required organs they have reached and they will flow in the normal rate. Therefore, answer will be answer number A. Which diagram describes the role of a mosquito and plasmodium in the disease malaria? Right. You know the mosquito which is used to transfer plasmodium is female Anopheles mosquito, right? Female Anopheles mosquito. And you know this mosquito is the one which has this plasmodium inside it. The parasite plasmodium is actually inside. The parasite plasmodium is inside the mosquito. And this mosquito can actually transfer the disease, into the human blood, right? Into the human blood. So you can see this mosquito is just an innocent animal, right? But he is the one who is carrying that parasite, right? He is the one who is carrying the plasmodium, right? Plasmodium into the blood of the humans. Anything which carries a parasite or a pathogen, you refer to it as a carrier or a vector. You refer to it as a carrier or vector, right? So mosquito will be the vector, right? Mosquito is the vector. Mosquito is not the pathogen. Mosquito is not the parasite. Mosquito is the vector. You can see only in C they have referred mosquito as the vector and not as pathogen and parasite. Then who is a pathogen? It is an organism that causes diseases to the host after infection. Yes, we know when this plasmodium enters, the human will get malaria. So plasmodium is actually a pathogen. Plasmodium is actually a pathogen. Parasite is an organism that lives on another species. Yes, the parasite lives in the mosquito as well as in the human blood. That means the plasmodium is a parasite, right? Therefore, plasmodium becomes a pathogen as well as a parasite. Answer is C. 20th, bar chart shows the percentage of women who had babies with low birth weight. Some of these women were smokers and some were non-smokers. What is shown by the bar chart? Okay, let's see. You can see smokers, right? The people, that means the women who have smokers, they have a higher percentage of women with babies having low weight. And if you take the non-smokers, almost like half from the smokers, that means half the percentage that the smokers had, non-smokers are having only like half the percentage that the smokers had, right? That means that some of their babies are also in low weight, right? Okay, what is shown by the bar chart? More women smoke during pregnancy than do not. By looking at this particular diagram only, you can't say that more women smoke during pregnancy. They are not showing anything about the number of women. Are they? No, they're just showing percentage of having low weight children. They're not talking about the number of women. Therefore, A could be eliminated. B, smoking in pregnancy increases the risk of low birth weight. You can't say like that also, because you can see that means we can't come into a conclusion like that without going through the answers C and D, right? But you can't directly say that also. So in this type of graph questions, you need to be no we you have to always answer. That means in these type of graph questions, you have to read all the four questions for answers before coming into a conclusion, because sometimes there can be a more appropriate answer than the answer to choose. So I'm going to keep B for sometimes, but you can see B is almost correct, because you can see smoking in pregnancy has increased when compared to non-smokers. But you can see non-smokers also have a considerably a higher value as well, right? It's not low like this, right? It's also high. So you can't come into a conclusion as soon as you see answer number B. You have to read C and D as well before coming. Right. Smoking is bad for the health of pregnant women. Okay, here we're not talking about the health of a pregnant woman. You are talking about the low birth weight probability, the low birth weight percentage, right? Therefore, C can be eliminated. D, women whose babies have low birth weight are smokers. You can't say that too, right? Because women having babies with low birth weight, there are non-smokers as well. So D is also wrong. Now you can conclude that B is the most appropriate answer from the or from all the four answers, right? Okay.